This is TWiT.
So I don't know how long Variety has been doing its charts on engagement on Twitter or the trending TV charts. But I think it's interesting that the Academy Awards got more engagements than any TV show since the charts began, with 32.8 million engagements compared to the number 2 on the charts for the week, Bridgerton, which was about 295,000. I think that's information that's interesting. I have to say, I was watching the Academy Awards with Twitter open, and I thought that was. I almost wanted to close the lid because the Twitter went crazy after the slap heard round the world. But I think it's also that ended up being a really good, powerful discussion, a valuable discussion. Don't you think?
I thought the discussion was all over the place.
It was.
I mean,
as it should be.
I couldn't figure out how people were going to come down on it. I even was texting with my dear old mom, and she was like, well, I always thought good about Will Smith, but if he's willing to do that in public, imagine how he treats his family and staff. And I was like, oh, that's a nuanced point I hadn't thought about.
Isn't that great? See? More information. It's interesting. Yeah.
But I was just, I was astounded that it happened. And then also just, the way in which you saw it spun in different circles around like red feed, blue feed. It was just, you could really tell, like in some instances, there was just blatant racism that were just like, I think there were jokes from the right that was like about black on black crime. And, this is quote unquote thuggish behavior, which is code for the N-word. And so it was, and so it was like, it was not good in that sense of the word. And then on top of it, on the left, you have this sort of mealy-mouthed approach of like, the echoes of the should you punch a Nazi debate that played out on Twitter. Right. And like people were saying, well, sometimes people just need to get smacked. And I'm just like, I just don't think that that's appropriate either.
In the final analysis, having had that national discussion was better than each person going home alone to think about it.
Good point.
All by themselves.
Yeah, because it brought out nuances.
It brought out all that nuance.
Arguments.
Yeah, in fact, I loved what your mom said. I think to me, that's the benefit of
But the other thing about this too is it's also
information place like Twitter. Go ahead.
Sorry, Leo.
No.
It's also about white Twitter and black Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, you can do all the tribalism and all that too.
No. I'm not
that's
saying
interesting
that at all.
information. Yeah.
Let me give you an example. So I can't find it now, but there was a chart today. Somebody did an analysis of Twitter of which states were pro Rock or pro Smith, right? And a black Twitter expert came in and said they don't understand the language of black Twitter, so they're counting some people here and some people there because they just don't understand because it's done by the people who don't know.
Well, what a great opportunity to learn the language.
Yes, but it's also a case where, I've talked about Andre Brock Jr. on this show before, who wrote Distributed Blackness. And he kind of says at some point, we don't need or want you in our Twitter. You've had all the media.
Well,
you've had all of this stuff. Let us have ours, for God's sakes, and stay out.
Can I follow you?
Oh, yeah, but just
I don't tweet. I don't want to get in any conversations on Twitter, but I like to read it.
Oh, I do too. I do that. But there's times when, I've seen people on black Twitter say that they really don't want to be watched. And so maybe not.
Don't do it on Twitter then. Or, maybe do it on Trump's social. Nobody will be there.
Nonetheless, but my point is only that there were also racial nuances beyond the racism. There were nuances about black women in hair, about black men, about lots of things that people felt they could comment on, and maybe they weren't the best to comment, and maybe it was better to sit back and watch and learn.
Yeah, that's fine too. That's I welcome reading that as well. I feel like we're better off with all of that information flowing through our heads. And boy, that was perfect, Joan. You continually remind yourself of, why do I believe what I believe? Why
do I know this?
Yeah. Why do I know this? Where is this coming from? And are open to additional information. then the opportunity is fantastic. It's fantastic. We've never had a better opportunity for understanding each other.
Well, yeah. And, sometimes I think about it and I'm like, okay, here we have this problem of social media. And we also are at this, it starts to arise right at the same exact time that a movement like Black Lives Matter starts to make a big difference in the world. And in Black Lives Matter is using a lot of social apps and connectivity in order to drive, change about police policies, and really is able to activate on a within hours, major networks of people and change public conversation if there's some kind of crisis happening. At the exact same time that starts to happen, you start to get all this worry about social media being probably bad for the world. But then what you start to look at when you realize, okay, well, what are people saying is bad about social media? It's not, Leo, that people are saying, oh, my God, it's so great that we're all connected and we can see so many more opinions and we can have so much more discussion. That's not the problem. For me, the problem is when Russia pretends to be Black Lives Matter and intentionally inflames the conversation and uses the affordances of these tech platforms to do it, to impersonate certain social movements and certain groups of people, and not just Russia, but now it's kind of like the imposterness of these fake accounts that represent people that they don't actually know or
I'm willing.
part of.
I'm willing to say
That's a problem.
Yeah, I'm willing to say Twitter. There should be a law. Twitter should ban inauthentic accounts or something. I mean, I'm not against that idea. Twitter can kill all the bots at once. Bots do not add
It's not just bots. It's like
or inauthentic accounts.
Yeah, and the inauthentic accounts, when you go back and you look sort of historically when people were first starting to toy around with the notion of impersonating a whole community. So beyond just one or two accounts, we're talking hundreds of accounts at a time pretending to be Black people online.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why the stakes here, I think, are actually for me and you are so important, where we want to be able to preserve a lot of that conversation, a lot of that,
if it's genuine,
genuine conversation where society is moving towards more pro-social goals, more democratic goals. Let's go there. It's the bad actors or politicians, like PR or political operatives disguised as journalists. These are the people that are really making a mess.
And I would
these platforms.
I would submit that one of the most important skills you have, and certainly I have, is to detect inauthenticity, to have a really good radar for BS.
Except for when it comes to Bitcoin. I'll believe anything about those jerks. I mean, like if they're
that's something everybody should work on. I mean, that's a great thing to know. Whether it's spam coming in saying click this link to win a prize, or a Russian saying let's kill Whitey, you should really work on that. That's a good thing to have, is that inauthenticity radar. Let's take
and I think that can be taught too.
I think so, and I think we should. I think these are the things we should work on. I'm not the one that says, oh, you got to teach critical thinking in school. It's much more difficult than that. But I think we should work on really improving to understand the opportunity that all this flood of information provides, and improving our ways personally of dealing with it. I mean, maybe that's because that's what I've embarked on for the last 20 years of my life. In this job is I read a fantastic amount of news constantly, as I'm sure you do, Joan, and I know you do, Jeff. Constant inputs, and then really trying to use it to massage it so that it's of value to me. That's my job, and then I can spout it out to you.
But you offer that to your audience as well.
That's what I do. That's what I consider my job. Yeah.
Right. And so you are acting as that institution.
Yeah, but also I would absolutely think that if anybody does, it always baffles me that people will send me notes saying you shouldn't say that, or why do you think that? It's like all you do is turn it off. There's a button. Press the stop button and go to another podcast. There's an infinite. That's what I like. There's an infinitude of choice. And maybe open yourself up to hearing things you don't want to hear or don't like or you disagree with, just in case. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know how I got all Pollyanna on this, because it's terrible. It's a horrible world, and we've got to fix it.